It's Tuesday morning, the 15th of December 2020 in Bondo County, Kenya. Bondo County is about an 8-hour drive northwest from Nairobi, the country's capital. Ishmael hurries along bush tracks, breathing heavily. His heart beats faster as he increases his pace. He begins to run, using his machete to cut through overgrown leaves, grass, and branches along the narrow path on the road to the village elder's house. Ishmael is on his way to report what he just saw on his farm. He is a few meters away and can see the house of the village elder. He dashes into the compound. Seconds later, a middle-aged woman appears at the door. She dries her hands using the wrapper tied around her waist as she rushes out with bare feet to meet him. Makena recognizes Ishmael. He's a cattle rearer and has a farm not too far from hers. Makena sees the sweat and leaves matted on his face. He looks frightened, like someone had chased him from the farm.
Ishmael, why are you breathing like this? My farm. There's a body in my farm. What do you mean a body? I don't know, but I think it's a dead body. What? Yes. Are you serious? Whose body is it? I don't know. I couldn't look. But I think it's a man. Oh my God. Where is it? Take me to the place.
She tells the cattle rearer to lead the way to his farm. Ishmael leads Makena to the spot and points at the body, which was partially covered with dead leaves and broken stems. Although the face was not visible, Ishmael could tell from the trousers and hands that it was a man's body. Makena moves past Ishmael to get closer to inspect the body. The trousers looked familiar to her. She tells Ishmael to remove the leaves and stems that cover the face and the upper part of the body. Deep and multiple cuts ran through the head, face, and shirt as if a machete was used to hack the man to death. The face was pale and badly disfigured. But Makena is quick to recognize the face. She staggers back a bit and almost slumps to the ground before Ishmael grabs her. She screams out a name as she grabs onto Ishmael. Ishmael looks over at the body and immediately recognizes who it is. It's Philip Otieno, Makena's husband.
I am so tired of this man.
She stabbed me.
Oh shit.
Officer, I didn't kill my husband.
Oyamino is dead.
I love my husband.
Nothing in life is certain except death, taxes, and crime. Criminals exist in every community. They can be a complete stranger, a next-door neighbor, or the person you kiss goodnight. Welcome to the 3rd season of True Crime Naija. I'm your host, John Ewah. In this series, we bring you stories of crimes that have actually happened not only in Nigeria but across Africa. We hope that by sharing these stories, we all become a little smarter at detecting and preventing similar crimes. Makena Mwangi is a 49-year-old woman and the 3rd wife of Philip Otieno. His 2 ex-wives left the marriage because they were unable to take his constant abuse and brutality. And when they ran away, they left behind 4 children, all girls. About 11 years ago, when Makena met and fell in love with Philip, she believed that if she could bear him a son, he would not treat her like he treated his former wives. Shortly after they got married, Makena became pregnant, and in 2010 she gave birth to a male child. Fast forward 10 years later, it's nightfall on Monday, the 14th of December 2020, and Philip Otieno staggers in the darkness to find his way home. He has had a lot to drink, maybe even too much. Everything is a blur, but the road to his home is familiar. As Philip stumbles into the house, he calls out for his wife. The stench of alcohol fills the room. Makena rushes out from the kitchen carrying a tray of food. She was already expecting Philip to be coming home drunk, and she knew that he would demand food as soon as he arrived. Although Philip didn't give her any money for food items, Makena had managed to feed him and their entire family by farming the land that her father-in-law had left her. She sets down the tray in front of Philip, and she's careful not to get too close to him. She doesn't like getting into trouble with Philip, especially when he's drunk. Philip consumes the meal almost immediately after his wife places it on the table. After he has had his fill, he calls out for her to clear the table. As McKenna approaches, he grabs her hand before she could touch the tray.
Where is the title deed? The one my father gave to you, my land, where is it?
McKenna begins to panic under the firm grip of her husband's hand. She struggles, frees herself from his grip, and moves away. She knows that this is going to turn into yet another argument about the title deed. Before McKenna's father-in-law died, he gave her the legal right over the family land because his father believed that she was more responsible than Philip, his son. The last time he gave Philip a plot of land, he sold it and used the money to fuel his alcohol addiction.
Your father gave me the title deed. And you know I farm on that land for the whole family. I don't care. It is my land. You can't have what belongs to me. But it's my name that's on it. Where is it? Better give it back to me or I will kill you.
McKenna backs away from Philip and into the kitchen. The last time they had a fight, she was almost left for dead after being severely beaten by Philip. She was saved by one of the neighbors who took her to the hospital. Philip refused to visit her in the hospital or pay the hospital bill. She was careful not to get into another fight with him again. But now, McKenna is terrified because Philip is not only furious, he's also very drunk. After a few minutes of hiding in the kitchen, she comes out and sees that the coast is clear. She doesn't see Philip in the living room. While McKenna was in the kitchen, Philip had gone to the bedroom to look for something. He sees a panga in the corner of the room. Panga is a local name for a knife which looks like a machete. He grabs the panga, holds it over his head and stomps into the living room. From the corner of her eyes, McKenna sees her husband and ducks as he swings the panga at her. She dodges again as he continues swinging over her head. McKenna manages to grab his hand and they struggle for the panga. She wrestles the knife from him and he lunges for her. She swings the panga and makes contact with his head. Philip staggers backward as McKenna continues to cut through his face and head. Unable to escape or defend himself, he screams in pain and slumps to the ground. It is now almost midnight on Monday, and McKenna is still standing holding the blood-stained panga in her hand. She begins to pace back and forth. When she realizes that the panga is still in her hands, she throws it on the floor and it makes a noise. She's startled by the noise, and that's when she remembers her son was in the next room. McKenna tiptoes to his room and peeks in. He's still sleeping. She returns to the living room and she knows she has to clean up before her son wakes up. But first, she has to dispose of the body, and she cannot leave the body on her own farm. It's bound to attract suspicion. So McKenna takes the body to a neighboring farm, Ishmael's farm, about 200 meters away, and dumps it there. In the darkness, she pulls at some leaves and broken stems on the farmland to cover the body. Then she heads back home and spends the rest of the night into the early morning hours cleaning the blood stains from the floor. Later that Tuesday morning, Ishmael is out grazing his cattle when he notices an object that looks like a body. He approaches and sees what looks like the legs and hands of a man. He's not sure what he's looking at, but he thinks it's a dead man. Ishmael backs away, turns around, and runs. That Tuesday afternoon, the 15th of December 2020, Assistant Superintendent Philip Ngao is in his office at the local police patrol base when he hears a knock on his door. His orderly opens and announces the presence of McKenna, the area elder, and Ishmael. He orders them to be allowed to enter. Superintendent Ngao had already reviewed the written statements that McKenna and Ishmael had given earlier that morning. His men had visited the scene and Philip's body had been transferred to the morgue for autopsy. While they wait for the autopsy results, Superintendent Ngao wants to start interrogating McKenna and Ishmael. He looks over at McKenna and notices that her eyes are red and swollen. He knows that her continuous crying is the cause for her red eyes, but he cannot understand why her eyes would be swollen as though she had not slept well the previous night.
Tell me the truth, madam. Are you saying that your husband did not return home last night?
I did not see him. He always drinks a lot and comes back home late.
Madam, I am not asking you about the drinking habit of your husband. Answer my question. Did your husband return home last night?
The superintendent's gaze stays fixed on McKenna. She looks away and lowers her gaze to stare at the floor. She knows what the superintendent is implying and she starts to shake her head in denial.
I did not kill my husband. I love my husband a lot. I did not kill him.
The assistant superintendent is skeptical. He leans back into his seat as he considers his next move. Could she be lying? Or why would she lie? The superintendent knows by the numerous reports he had received in the past from their neighbors that Philip was always beating his wife, but she had never directly reported him to the police. If she did this, why now? The damage inflicted on Philip's body required a lot of force. Could she have physically actually done it? Something about McKenna's body language seems off to Superintendent Ngao. Sensing that he could get more from her alone, he dismisses Ishmael from the room. As Ishmael leaves the room, the superintendent leans forward on his desk and interrogates McKenna further.
I know that your husband has been assaulting you. It is also possible that everyone in the village knows about it. Now, if you know anything about the death of your husband, tell me now. If not, when an investigation is open and you are found connected in any way, the law will be very harsh on you.
McKenna breaks down and tells Ngao exactly what happened the night before. He has no choice but to hold her in custody until the autopsy is complete and charges can be pressed. On the 21st of December 2020, almost a week later, the assistant superintendent receives the autopsy report from the hospital. The post-mortem reveals that the cause of death was due to a heart arrest secondary to deep injuries to the head. He files the confession and charges McKenna to court to stand trial for the murder of Philip Otieno, her husband. It's now 3 months later, the 9th of March 2021, the day of McKenna's sentencing. McKenna looks around the courtroom. It's nearly empty. Just her advocate, the prosecutor, and some of Philip's family members sitting in the gallery. For the past 3 months, McKenna has been in police custody. The bail was set for her at 50,000 Kenyan shillings, about 180,000 naira or $450, but McKenna couldn't find a shorty who could afford the bond. In her sentencing, Judge Kamau stated that the court was persuaded that McKenna acted in self-defense when she killed her husband. The judge determined that there was ample evidence that McKenna was attacked by Philip, who was armed, and that in such circumstances, the only way out was for her to engage in self-defense. She sentenced McKenna Mwangi to serve a non-custodial sentence of 1 day imprisonment to last to the end day of the court session. McKenna jerks her head up and looks at Judge Kamau, and then looks over to her advocate, Mr. Mshindi. She's surprised and confused. When her trial first started on the 27th of January 2021, she had been arraigned for the charge of first-degree murder. At that time, McKenna agreed that she killed her husband, but she did not plan to kill him, so she pleaded not guilty to the charge. 2 weeks later, on the 15th of February, the charge was changed to manslaughter, to which McKenna pled guilty. McKenna was expecting a reduced sentence for the manslaughter charge, but she never expected a sentence of just 1 day. Over in the gallery, Philip's family members were also confused. Judge Kamau continues reading her judgment.
I am persuaded beyond a shadow of doubt that, albeit the accused unequivocally admitted to unlawfully killing the deceased, the facts coupled with her mitigation established killing in self-defense. According to Amnesty International, a slap, a punch, a kick, a forceful shove, intimidation, coercion, and fear, dominance, power, and control. These elements constitute domestic violence. Yesterday was International Women's Day. As the world marks the occasion, the question that this court poses is, what can the accused person, herein Makena Wangi, be celebrated for, and what will she be remembered for? There are only two things to remember her for from the facts of this case. One is that she was a butchered, battered, dehumanized, and violated woman who had no voice. She persevered through the domestic violence meted on her by her late husband, who was described as irresponsible and a violent man. She even hung on to him after discovering that he was HIV positive, though he attempted to hide the facts from her. Secondly, she will be remembered as a person who killed her husband in the process of defending her own life. The deceased was intoxicated as usual, and had he killed the accused, it would just be another case of manslaughter, and the accused person's story would never be told by anyone, since the dead tells no tale. Now, I am aware that if the accused is allowed to return to her community, she may not be safe. Therefore, I further order that the accused person shall be aided by this court with traveling expenses to reach a safe place of abode other than her matrimonial home. Assisted by the probation officer, Ukwala, we shall also organize the counseling session to enable the accused person recover from the traumatic experience that she had with her late husband. This court believes that through this judgment, the accused person and others who have undergone or are undergoing domestic and gender-based violence can have their voices heard. They are encouraged to report to any law enforcement agency or to the many non-governmental agencies that are registered and involved and dedicated to the advancement of life and human dignity. Run for your lives, both men and women who are abused. There is no love that can never be lost. Yet, love should never be lost by killing another person. Find an escape route to safety. Do not condone violence being meted on you. Be remembered and be celebrated as a person who escaped from the jaws of the lion, and not as the one who condoned being predated on by the ugly teeth of the hyena.
True Crime Naija is a Triple E Media production. Production copyright 2022, Triple E Media Productions. If you enjoyed this episode of True Crime Naija and would like to hear more, go to our website at 234audio.com to play the sample content, then download our app from the Google Play Store for even more episodes. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 234 Audio to watch the video for this episode. Make sure to click the notification bell, like, and leave a comment. Our episodes can also be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment because it helps other people to find our content. This episode of True Crime Naija was written by Rahmat Mohammed and Samuel Ini. Directed by Senet Ewah. Produced by Antonietta Kalunta and Senet Ewah. Executive producer Rahmat Mohammed. Amaka Agudiegu as Makena Mwangi. Blanco as Ishmael. Asogwa Chima Collins as Philip Utainu. Lighting, videography Uche Mba and Senet Ewah. Video editing Uche Mba. Sound editing Sam Tebakaji. Sound recording, mixing and mastering Dominic Tebakaji. Cover art by Mala Ewah Bado Ikalegu. Special thanks to Jide Bolarinwa, Chizoba Adeze, Onwungbenu, Jeff Awotu, Ngozi Mnaji, and Gilbert Owen. alert, stay alive. See you next week.